They say hunger makes people selfish. But let me ask you something. If you had only one piece of bread in your hand, a bread so small it could barely fill the stomach of a child, would you give it away to a stranger? Would you look at their face and still choose to share? Would you ignore your own empty stomach? No, most people wouldn't. They'd clutch it tighter, hide it in their wrapper, run to a corner, and eat in silence. Because hunger breaks kindness, but not for her, not for the little girl they all forgot. Her name was Halima, barefoot, thin as a broomstick. Her ribs showed when she bent. Her eyes had that strange mixture, the glow of hope and the shadow of weakness. She was only 6 years old. 6, and already she knew what it meant to starve. Her mother was sick, lie on a mat inside their mud-walled hut. Her father? Gone. Nobody spoke his name anymore. Halima would roam the dusty streets of village, carrying a small calabash bowl. Sometimes she found groundnuts, sometimes half-ripe mangoes, but most days, nothing. Still, she never stopped looking. And one evening, under the fading red sun of the savannah, destiny tested her. Halima had begged all day, her small feet cracked from the heat, her lips dry as stone, her stomach growled like thunder. At last, a kind old woman gave her a small flatbread, warm, smoky, straight from the clay oven. Halima held it like treasure, like gold, like life itself. Her eyes watered. She whispered, "Mama will eat today. Mama will smile." And she ran. But halfway home, she saw them, 3 strangers, men she had never seen in the village before. They sat by the roadside, under a crooked neem tree, dust on their clothes, sweat dripping, their faces tight with hunger. One of them held his stomach and groaned. Another licked his cracked lips. The third just stared at the horizon, eyes empty. Halima stopped. Her small hands clutched the bread tighter. Her throat burned. She thought of her mother, weak, feverish, waiting. She thought of her own stomach, hollow as a drum. And then she looked at them again. 3 grown men, strangers, hungry like her. What would you have done? Run? Hide the bread? Pretend not to see? Most people would. But Halima? She stepped forward, slowly, quietly, like a child walking into her own test. The men looked up. They saw a little girl, dusty, barefoot, holding a single bread. The oldest of them chuckled bitterly. "Go, small one, keep your food. We don't take from children." Halima's lips trembled. She broke the bread in half, then broke the half again, her small fingers shaking but determined, and she placed each piece into their hands. The men froze. Silence fell under the neem tree. No bird, no wind, only the sound of dry throats swallowing tears. Halima sat on the ground. She held the last tiny piece for herself. But before she could eat it, she looked back at them. They were eating slowly, carefully, as though her gift was holy. And then she smiled. For the first time in months, she felt full, not in her stomach, but in her heart, because hunger breaks people. But kindness, it breaks hunger. That night, Halima went home empty-handed. Her mother asked, "Did you eat, my child?" Halima lied with a smile. "Yes, Mama, I ate." And she tucked her mother in, humming an old lullaby, her own stomach crying in silence. But those strangers, they did not forget. They never forgot. Because that tiny piece of bread, given by a starving girl, would return years later, like thunder, like justice, like fate itself. And that was only the beginning of Halima's story. They say a child carries her mother's hunger. But let me ask you something. What happens when a mother has nothing left to give? When her breasts are dry, her hands empty, her strength fading? Does she stop being a mother? No. A mother starves, but never stops loving. Halima's mother was called Miriam. Once, people knew her as the brightest woman of the market. She would laugh loud, bargain sharp, and her tray of oranges always sold out before noon. Her voice was melody. Her hands worked like magic, and her daughter clung to her wrapper like a bird clings to its nest. But then sickness came. At first it was small, a cough in the morning, a fever that left with herbs. But slowly it grew. Her legs swelled, her skin grew pale, her eyes sank. She could no longer carry her tray to the market. She could no longer chase customers with her playful laugh. The woman who once fed the village now could not feed herself. Halima watched everything. She saw her mother sitting on the mat, staring at the empty pot. She saw her whisper prayers into the night, clutching her stomach. She heard her cry softly when she thought the little girl was asleep. And one day, Miriam called her close. "Halima," she said, voice thin as a dying candle. "Life will not give you plenty. It will test you. But promise me one thing." The little girl's wide eyes blinked. "What, Mama?" "Never let your hunger kill your kindness." Halima nodded, but she didn't fully understand. How can a child of 6 carry such a heavy vow? Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Halima became the one who searched for food. She fetched water. She cleaned her mother's sores. Every knock at the door made her heart jump. Sometimes it was neighbors giving a small coin. Sometimes it was silence. The village had grown cold. People whispered, "Don't waste your food on Miriam's child. She is cursed." Some even said, "Why should we help them? We all struggle." And so Halima learned early, the world can be cruel to the weak. But still, she remembered her mother's words. So when she found a small fruit, she often gave half to another hungry child. When she drank from the clay pot, she let others drink first. And when she held that bread in her hand, the bread she gave to strangers, it was her mother's voice guiding her. Never let hunger kill kindness. One night, the moon was high and the crickets loud. Halima sat by her mother's mat. The fever had returned. Sweat poured from her mother's forehead. Her lips moved in weak prayer. Halima held her hand. "Mama, don't leave me." Miriam smiled faintly. "Child, if Allah wills, I will go. But if I go, you must live. And you must live with a clean heart." Halima's tears fell hot. She placed her small palm on her chest. "I swear, Mama, I swear I will always share, even if I have only one grain." And in that dim hut, under the whisper of night, Destiny heard the vow. But destiny does not move in straight lines. It twists, it bends, it hides behind years, waiting for the right moment. That night, Halima did not know that the strangers she fed under the neem tree were not ordinary men. She did not know that one day their paths would return to her like a storm. She only knew hunger and love and the sound of her mother's breathing, growing weaker with each dawn. Sometimes she would wander past the big houses at the edge of the village. Tall gates, shiny cars, children in iron clothes holding toys. She would stand at the roadside barefoot, her little fingers pressed to her lips. Those children laughed at her. "Look at the rag girl," they shouted. "Go back to your gutter." Halima lowered her head, but inside a fire burned. She whispered to herself, "One day, I will be more than this. Mama will see me rise. Mama will know her suffering was not wasted." But fate is cruel before it is kind, because before her vow could bear fruit, Miriam's sickness grew worse. There were nights when Halima thought her mother would not see the morning, nights when she held her tightly, praying for breath to remain. And yet, even in her weakness, Miriam reminded her, "Child, remember kindness. Even if the world spits at you, even if they laugh, even if they slam their gates in your face." And Halima listened. She planted those words deep into her little heart, words that would one day carry her into palaces, into confrontations, into the revelation that would shake the rich and the proud. For now, she was still just a hungry child, still just a daughter at her mother's bedside. But the vow had been spoken, the bread had been shared, and unseen hands of destiny were already moving, preparing a day when the world would remember the name Halima. They say the gates of the rich do not open for the poor. But let me ask you something. What happens when destiny itself comes knocking? Do the iron bars stay closed? Or do they tremble? That morning, Halima's feet carried her farther than ever before. The sun was sharp. Her wrapper was thin, her basket of apples lighter than usual, but her heart was heavy. Her mother's cough had worsened in the night. Her lips were cracked, her skin burning with fever. Halima knew if she didn't find help today, there might be no tomorrow. So she walked past the dusty market stalls, past the shouting bus conductors, past the long road where big cars flew by without stopping. And finally, she reached them. The mansions. They stood like giants. Walls so high, a child could not imagine climbing them. Gates so wide, you could drive a whole street inside. Beyond the walls, flowers, fountains, glass windows sparkling like mirrors. It was another world, and Halima was not welcome. She stood at the first gate. The guard looked her up and down. "Move. Go away," he barked. She clutched her basket. "Please, uncle, just one apple." "Buy one apple." The man's face was stone. "No begging here." He turned his back. Halima's chest tightened, but she kept walking. One gate, then another, then another. Everywhere the same. Cold eyes, cold voices, cold iron, until she came to the largest gate of all. It was painted gold, carved with lions. Two guards stood like statues. Inside, she could hear laughter, the sound of glasses clinking, music floating like perfume. She hesitated. Her little hands trembled, but her mother's face flashed before her eyes. She stepped forward. "Please, please buy my apples," she whispered. The guards laughed. "Look at her. A gutter rat wants to sell here." She lowered her eyes. "I only need medicine for my mama. Just one apple, please." The guards waved their hands like swatting a fly. "Go, before master sees you. He doesn't like dirt at his gate." But fate was listening, because just then the mansion doors opened. He came out, the billionaire, tall, dressed in white agbada that shimmered in the sun, gold watch on his wrist, a smile on his face that did not reach his eyes. People whispered his name everywhere. Some called him chief, some called him chairman. All feared him, and here he was, standing before a 6-year-old apple seller. His gaze fell on her like fire. The guard straightened. "Sir, forgive us. She was just leaving." But the man raised his hand. "No, let her speak." Halima swallowed hard. She held up the basket, her voice breaking. "Sir, buy an apple. Please. My mama is sick. I only need money for her medicine." For a moment, silence. The wind carried the scent of her sweat, the dust of her journey. And then the man laughed. Not the laugh of kindness, not the laugh of pity, but the laugh of mockery. "Medicine? From these rotten apples." His guests at the door chuckled too. Women in silk gowns, men in polished shoes. They looked at her like she was a joke, like her hunger was entertainment. One woman whispered loud enough for all to hear. She should sell herself, not apples. The crowd roared with laughter. Halima's face burned. Her little hands gripped the basket, so tightly her knuckles went white. Her lips trembled, but she did not drop her mother's vow. "Sir, please, just one coin. My mama is dying." The billionaire stepped closer. He bent down, eyes narrowing, and in a voice cold enough to freeze the sun, he said, "Listen well, girl. People like you are born to crawl. Don't dare stand before lions." His words cut deeper than hunger. The laughter echoed. The gates loomed. The apples shook in her trembling hands. But somewhere in the silence of her soul, destiny was still moving, unseen, unstoppable, because the child they mocked was the very shadow that would one day bring the mansion to its knees. And so Halima turned away, her face wet, her basket still full, her heart scarred but unbroken. The guards jeered. The guests forgot her. The mansion door closed again. But fate does not forget. Not the insult, not the vow, not the hungry child standing at the golden gate. Fate had only just begun. They say truth walks slowly, but when it finally arrives, it strikes like thunder. That night, Halima lay beside her mother. Her basket of apples was still full. Her stomach was empty. Her eyes were swollen from weeping. But her heart, oh, her heart carried the billionaire's insult like a stone. People like you are born to crawl. Those words would not leave her ears. And as the oil lamp flickered against the cracked walls of their hut, she whispered into the dark, "Mama, one day he will see us. One day he will know." Her mother coughed weakly. Her thin hand reached out, trembling, to touch the girl's cheek. "Child, don't waste your spirit on bitterness. Just live. Just live." But destiny had already stretched out its hand. The wheel was already turning. The next morning, the mansion stirred again. Music, perfume, guests arriving for a grand occasion. The billionaire's wife was hosting a gathering of nobles. Cars lined the street. Silk gowns swayed like rivers of color. And once again, fate carried little Halima to that same golden gate. This time, not by choice, because one of the servants, a kind old woman, had seen Halima crying by the roadside the day before. Her heart had ached for the child. And so, against all order, she had whispered, "Come with me, little one, at least today you will eat." And so Halima, barefoot and trembling, entered the lion's den. The hall was like a palace. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers raining light, walls painted with gold leaves. Halima's eyes widened. She had never seen such splendor. She held her basket tightly, afraid even the air might shatter her apples. The servant pushed her gently forward. "Stay here, child. I will fetch you something to eat." Halima nodded, standing in a corner like a shadow. But shadows cannot hide from destiny, because at that very moment, the billionaire himself walked in. His laughter filled the hall. His robe flowed like a river. Men bowed. Women smiled. And then his eyes fell on her, the barefoot girl, the same one he mocked at his gate. His face hardened. "What is she doing here?" he barked. The room went silent. Halima froze. Her little chest rose and fell like a bird trapped in a hunter's hand. Before she could speak, the kind servant stepped forward. "Sir, forgive me. She is only a child. I thought she might—" "Silence!" the billionaire roared. "Throw her out. I told you, beggars do not belong in my house." Halima's lips trembled. Her eyes brimmed with tears. She clutched her basket, whispering, "I only want to save my mama." Her voice was so soft, yet it cut through the hall like a blade. And then it happened. The billionaire's wife, seated among the nobles, leaned forward. Her eyes narrowed. Her hand shook as she pointed at the child. That face, she whispered. All heads turned toward her. The hall stilled. The woman rose to her feet, trembling, staring at Halima as though she had seen a ghost. "Come here, child," she said, her voice breaking. Halima, confused, stepped forward. The woman's hand reached out, brushing the child's cheek. Her fingers shook violently, and then her eyes fell on Halima's arm. There it was, a mark, a small crescent birthmark, the same one her own son carried. The woman gasped. Her knees weakened. She clutched her chest, whispering, "God in heaven, whose child is this?" The hall erupted in whispers. The billionaire's face drained of color. "What nonsense are you speaking, woman?" he snapped. But his own eyes betrayed fear. The mark, the resemblance, the echo of his own blood staring back at him. Halima's lips parted. Her little voice trembled. "My mother, her name is Amina. She is sick. I sell apples for her." The name fell into the billionaire's ears like a thunderclap. His whole body stiffened. Memories long buried tore through him like fire. Amina, the girl from his youth, the one he had left behind, the one whose tears had once begged him to stay. As he turned his back, the hall spun. He stumbled backward, clutching the edge of a chair. No, it cannot be. But destiny does not ask permission, because even as he denied, the servants were already running, fetching the sick woman from the hut, bringing her into the mansion hall. And there she was, thin, weak, her body trembling, her eyes hollow from sickness and hunger. But her spirit, her spirit still burned. The moment Amina's eyes met the billionaire's, silence swallowed the hall. Her chest heaved, her lips quivered, then her voice cracked like thunder. You beast! You left me to die. You left our child to suffer. Gasps filled the room. Guests covered their mouths. The wife staggered back, horror on her face. The billionaire's knees buckled. He felt the ground before her, his palms slamming the marble. Tears poured from his eyes. His chest shook with sobs. Yes, it is true. Forgive me. Forgive me. Amina, I was a coward. I was blind. I abandoned you both. The hall quaked with the weight of truth. Halima stood frozen, her little basket of apples still in her arms, her whole world tilting, twisting. She looked at her mother. She looked at the man who had mocked her, and suddenly she understood. The laughter, the insult, the cruelty at the gate. All of it had come from her own blood, her father. The words stabbed her heart. She dropped the basket. Apples rolled across the marble floor, scattering like tears, and Halima collapsed into sobs. The billionaire crawled forward, reaching for her tiny hands. My daughter, forgive me. But Halima pulled back, her voice shattering the silence. You told me people like me are born to crawl. Then crawl before me now. The hall gasped, and the billionaire did. He fell to his knees, his forehead touching the marble, his sobs shaking the walls. His wealth meant nothing. His power meant nothing. His pride shattered like glass. Before the child he mocked. Before the woman he abandoned, he was nothing but dust. The nobles whispered. The servants wept. The mansion that once rang with laughter now trembled with judgment. And in that moment, the lion became the worm. The mighty man became the beggar. The revelation had struck. The truth had burned the house. And the poor apple seller, the child of insult, stood as a thunder of destiny itself. They say truth walks slowly, but when it finally arrives, it leaves no stone unturned. And that day, it left a mansion in ruins,